Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So recently I've been playing around with Sentry and I have grown to kind of enjoy him. So originally I started playing around with him in like a Valkyrie shell that came from Kawa, and I'm still not completely sold on Valkyrie. A lot of times it can backfire if they have an ongoing ability. If they have more than one, your rogue isn't going to be enough to steal it all. However, I am always a pretty big fan of control-heavy builds that use like Daredevil and Professor X, and I think this Sentry build fits right up that alley. So there's a couple of kind of cheeky playlines that you can run to be able to make use of your Sentry. You can turn it from a downside to an upside, potentially. There are some of the games where you are able to do the Sentry into the Viper combo. You can Viper the negative void that Sentry generates, and it's always a fantastic feeling to send -8 power onto their board. But with this deck, that's not necessarily where that stops. You could also use your Magneto. Once you send them that 4-cost negative void, you can use your Magneto to position it into a different lane that maybe they had given up on that far right lane. And so maybe you can pull that -8 power into a different location to swing another lane as well. You can also Professor X lock the right lane into playing your Sentry. You can Professor X lock one of the other lanes into maybe doing a Spider-Man. You have the ramp component from Psylocke to either drop your Professor X early or your Sentry early, maybe even your Magneto early. And then you have your counter-heavy plays in your Shang-Chi and your Enchantress and Killmonger, all of which get really good value for what we're seeing in the current meta right now. And so overall, I've had a really good time with this list. I climbed from about 103 to 106 in testing on this account. I climbed from 70 to 76 on my alternate account, and I've been under the impression that Sentry is bad. He can be clunky. He can lose you the games. I lost during my testing. I lost one to D-Money, who pulled my void over into another lane after Spider-Man locking me out of the location. So it was a very good heads-up play from D-Money, but it can backfire if you're not paying attention and if your opponent plays around it correctly. But most of the time, that's not going to happen. The Daredevil read is always a good one to allow you to comfortably find a Professor X lane to lock, and then from there, you're just looking to find how you win from that position. And so if you want to check out more of this deck and any of the other decks that I cover live in a less structured way, make sure to be following us on twitch.tv/TLSGsnap. That's where I'll be going live from now on. And so with the brief deck explanation out of the way, we're going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, first up we have Sinryu. The first location is Wakanda. We do get both our Sentry and our Viper. So we could either use that for a turn 6 play in unison together, or we could do maybe a turn 4, a turn 5 Sentry. We have the cheeky Magneto to pull the void across the board if we need to. And then we also have our Professor X. So I'm probably going to lean more towards doing a Sentry on 4, a Professor X lockdown on 5, and then we're going to be flooding as much as we possibly can on 6. And so they have the Sunspot to start. They have the Scorpion that comes down that affects the rest of our cards, which isn't the worst thing. Ooh. The last location being the Baxter building could be a little... and I'm not sure I care for the last location being the Baxter building. If we swing it with the Void into Viper, that's good. But I don't know that that's as easy to do as we would want it to be. Let's go ahead and do the Psylocke now. Next turn, we will be able to potentially do a Professor X lockdown, but we're not going to get the insight from Daredevil that we would normally want. And so if we push for Professor X here, it becomes a gamble. But with the Sunspot Scorpion Lockjaw, I'm not entirely sure what they're running. I am going to gamble here though. I'm going to assume that they're going to rotate with the Lockjaw. Maybe not. Because then if we play Sentry, we have to have a space to clear it up. We can clear it up with the Carnage. We're gonna lock in the Professor X into mid. They do rotate a card. They rotate their Wasp. So unless they get something that goes wide or impacts multiple lanes, they get the Chavez, which is not gonna quite do it for them. Luckily for us, we get our Shang-Chi, which can clear out the America Chavez, which is another really good one. We could have also used our Psylocke ramp into a turn 5 Sentry plus Viper to make sure that it could trigger and get pushed over into the Baxter building lane. But without knowing exactly what they were going to run, that's a little bit harder to do. Now we have to swing the Baxter building. That is going to be our only way to win. I think what we're going to do is we're going to Carnage into Viper. That is going to give them 2 extra power here. bringing them up to 15, but they can't rotate any more cards. So whenever we come down with a Shang-Chi on the last turn, that'll bring them down to 2, 4, 6, 3, that's only 5 for us. Ugh, that's tough too. I think they full rotate on the last turn, but we don't know. So I'm going to play the Shang-Chi into the Baxter building lane. We're going to take out the America Chavez. They have 2 locations that they can rotate into, so they have a Wasp. We know that they'd have that somewhere in their deck. It would be a gamble, but our best bet would be playing Sentry into a Viper and it hitting the 50-50 of the Viper push. Now that's if they don't rotate 2 cards. So this is probably statistically not a very likely win, but we're going to try it. And so they only rotate 1 card, being the Magneto. I don't know if we even, but it rotates. And so it rotates into Arrow, which is actually, that makes it a 1 out of 3 that we hit the right card with our Viper. We do. What are the odds? That is awful RNG for you, Sin Ryu. We should not have won that one. I feel bad about that one. I don't think that's a good showcasing of the deck outside of my good RNG, my good RNG luck. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one, see if we can get a little bit better game to play off of. All right, next up we have the ID DM. The first location is the cloning vats, so we can continue to play our cards. We could continue to Viper and clog up their side of the board maybe. We could also play our demon multiple times. I think I like the idea of just continuing to Viper this stuff over there over and over and over again. We do have our Killmonger that we can eventually clear out their sunspots as long as they don't protect it with something like an armor. And so I'm going to go ahead and Viper just to continue to take up their space on that side of the board. We can next turn do a Hood and a Viper somewhere else. They do their second sunspot into the Starlight Citadel. And so I think we're going to try to clog up this lane as much as we possibly can. We could play it into a different location. I almost like the idea of this. We get an additional demon. We can play our Carnage, which every time we play Carnage, he's going to continue to buff himself up. So I think instead of the Psylocke, we're going to do the Carnage. This is going to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can't do that until next turn. I'm going to do the Hood. We're going to play our Psylocke just to give us some additional space. We need 1 additional space if we're going to be generating the Hood to be able to draw, to be able to copy our Carnage. And so we're not going to draw this time, but we will be able to play a couple of our resources out onto the board. So we can do our Demon. We could do, and that doesn't copy. We could do Demon and it does. We could do Carnage. 3, that's going to be 6. And if we do it this way, that's going to be 3, 4, 5, 6 as well. And then we can still draw. We get the bigger Carnage. We get an extra Demon. And then we can start spreading him onto the board wherever we feel like. And they do use a Leech, but it's going to come down because they have initiative, because they have priority. It's going to come down before we copy some of our cards. So we still get our regular Hood. We still get our regular Demon, our regular Carnage that is going to be able to be used to destroy lanes and just continue to get bigger and bigger. And so I think we use our, maybe our Viper, our Carnage, which will continue to grow. We're going to get an additional 1 in hand. And then our Demon will go to the left. This will fill us up with 6 cards in our hand. We can draw 1. Or maybe we do the Hood. We do the Hood. Then we do the Demon and Carnage. No. We do the Hood here. We do Viper to the left. We do Carnage. That's going to give us 4, 5, 6, 7. We don't have to worry about the draw because this is going to be better than anything else we could draw anyways. We're going to be able to focus on the Carnage, the demons that we have. So we're going to have several demons in hand, plus a really big Carnage as well. And so with their ramp, they probably end up going with something like Dr. Doom to spread power wide. Since they haven't dropped their Sandman, we can pretty easily, we have a 14 power 2 cost card that turns into a 16 power. If they do an Odin here, that's 16 here. So maybe we do the Carnage and then we do a Demon. We place another Demon, I think maybe to the mid. We're winning this one by 6. We're winning this one by 5. I don't know that it necessarily matters where we play this time around, but I do think we're going to order it in this way. We have initiative, so our Carnage will trigger in before any kind of arrow plays or anything similar. We don't have to worry about that piece. The Odin, I think we're covered. I think without the Sandman and with us being able to flood all of our demons, all of our carnages onto the board, there's just not a lot that they can do with that much power. One of the reasons I absolutely love the cloning vats, whenever you're running a Carnage or a Venom, especially with some low curve, low cost cards, you can start really ramping those up to make it really difficult for the opponent to be able to answer to what you're able to push. We'll take our 1 cube. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Peralo. The first location is Monster Metropolis. We have our Professor X, we have our Daredevil, so we should be able to get a lockdown on 5. Ideally, if we're not going to Carnage or Viper after the Sentry play, we would lock down this far right lane, but that really depends on how the game advances and how just the board state looks. Now, it looks like they're running the Thanos list, which we've been pretty fortunate, and we haven't seen Thanos recently. And so maybe it's about time that we see how we fare against the Thanos list. I think we're just going to play out our Carnage for now. We have our Shang-Chi and our Enchantress, so if they end up doing some kind of ongoing ability into Onslaught Citadel, or maybe even we use it onto their Quinjet, we can get some value, but a lot of times by the time we would use it on the Quinjet, it's not all that incredible. We're going to be able to Spider-Man lock into a Daredevil read on turn 5. So unless they play quite a bit of power, they do play quite a bit of power into the Onslaught Citadel. And so we're not going to be able to lock it down with the Professor X necessarily, but we do have the strong Enchantress counter that could have just been discarded. They discarded their Magneto, we discarded our Shang-Chi, so we can no longer take out their Devil Dino. Most decks are not running Enchantress now, and so it usually will come as a bit of a surprise whenever it does get dropped. So they play Space Stone in the middle and then Arrow to the left. So if we use Hood, they can move one of their stones though, the issue. Not much we can do. With them having initiative, we're going to have to retreat out of this one, unfortunately. We do have the counters, multiple counters. We have the Professor X to lock down a lane. They just got too much tempo on us too quickly, and we weren't able to answer. They had the Quinjet right off the jump, which makes flooding the stones a little bit too easy. We can swing the Onslaught Citadel lane, but winning one of the other ones would be the challenge. With the Space Stone allowing them to move one of these stones out of the middle, even with our Demon, we wouldn't be able to do it. We're going to take the 1 cube retreat. We'll jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Snapbot. The first location is Sinister London. We're going to play our Hood. We're going to duplicate it. We get 2 demons to spread across the board. What we're angling for is to get an early lead into the Sinister London lane. So what we're probably going to want to do is do one of our demons now. It might do the duplicate into the Murder World, potentially. Next turn, we can do our Psylocke and Demon. That will allow us to do a turn 4 Professor X, and if we can lock down 2 of the lanes, then we're in a really good positioning. So I'm going to go ahead and snap early, knowing that we have a decent playline. We have the ramp component to get the Professor X out early. All right, next up we have Fuel. The first location is Quantum Realm, so that really limits where we can play our Sentry into middle lane. I mean, we could play it into the Quantum Realm, but he's going to become a 2 power card, and that's obviously not what we want from a 4 cost. So we do have the Viper, so we can send the Void over their way. I think we ramp up into an early Sentry. We can Psylocke into the left lane. That's going to become a 2 power card, so we get a little bit of an advantage from the Quantum Realm. And then we're going to have 4 energy in this upcoming turn. We can Sentry mid. On the actual turn 4, we can Viper to the right to get some decent play around potential. And so they do the Soul Stone. They are running a Thanos deck. So we do have our Enchantress if we end up needing to, but they have the variable power of Sunspot that can continue to grow over time. So it's not as advantageous for us to cancel out their Soul Stone. I think we probably just have to give them this location unless we draw into our Killmonger. If we draw our Killmonger, then that's going to be really, really good for us. Oh no, the Reality Stone changes the negative zone into the Dark Dimension. And the reason that is so bad is we can't Viper this. We can. I guess if we have Killmonger eventually, we can Viper it. But otherwise, we don't have a way to guarantee that we can Viper the Void without it being capped out or full. I'm going to go ahead and play our Daredevil and our Hood into Quantum Realm. That will buff him up a little bit. They do play She-Hulk, which is going to be a target for our Shang-Chi. It's going to be within Shang-Chi range. We get Magneto, and we also get the Daredevil Reed. All right, so they end up going with the blue Marvel in the right lane. So they go with the Blarvel. Right now we're meeting that criteria. But even if we blue Marvel it, that's not marvelous for us. I'm going to play the Viper, we're going to pretend like we're able to send it over their way. And we're going to play the Demon to follow it up. We have the Shang-Chi we can play. Maybe the Magneto, but most likely the Shang-Chi in the sewer system. And we're just hoping that we can send them the negative void into their side of the board. They have initiative. They could arrow us into maybe Quantum Realm and hurt us that way. Killmonger would have been a really good card here. So they play into mid. Ooh, the Magneto. The Magneto is not great because that does pull our void over before we're able to send it over with our Viper. So unfortunately, we're going to clear out their lane. Oh, we are a +1 in this location. So we actually win between... What a close win. We actually win in this lane because of the Sentry with the power from the Daredevil and the Shang-Chi. We clear out their entire sewer system. The Viper and Demon are what bring it home for us. That was almost really, really bad, almost really, really clever, but we were able to pull it out in the end. We will go ahead and take our win against the Thanos. Let's go ahead and jump over into one more. All right, next up we have Mongoose, and our first location is Camartage. We have Hood in our starting hand, so we get 2 demons right off of the bat. The second location is Vormir, which is not as impressive, but we can do the Hood and Psylocke. That will give us 5 energy on this upcoming turn. We could try to sneak in a Professor X, and then we can always do the double Viper to send them the Hood and the Psylocke in their Camartage lane to start clogging that space. They do use an armor, which is okay. We're not carnaging it this time around. We don't have our carnage in hand, but instead we're going with the cheeky Professor X. Now they have initiative. As long as they don't play more than 1 card in Vormir, then we're going to be a-okay here with our 5 energy Professor X lockdown on turn 3 into a probably into a Viper and a Daredevil, into a Spider-Man. We're looking very, very strong here. I almost want to snap, but I've spoken with Mongoose several times. I feel bad. I also don't want them to retreat before everything initiates, and I think they probably would. We have a really good strategic positioning on them. Okay, so the 0 into the Lizard, which is fine. They probably have Shuri coming down, which I think is even better for us. If they play Shuri, I would play it into Camartage, because that is ideally where we need to play. So then we could double Viper. We can do the Daredevil just to make sure what we need to do on the last turn, and we can lock them out of the game potentially. Do we snap? We have a really strong positioning. We can either lock them out of the game with Spider-Man. We can lock them out with Viper if they play there this turn. Ooh, they snap on us. So I mean that unleashes the beast. We can't not snap back. We're gonna go ahead and snap back. That should help support the fact that they're gonna do a Shuri in the left lane. And maybe they're questioning their snap here. The Shuri in the left lane is the correct read. The double Viper coming down, the Hood, the Psylocke. They are capped out of the left lane. They are capped out of the middle location. We get an easy read on what they're doing next turn. We also have our Daredevil to come down, and we get the cheeky 4 cubes. I imagine it will result in 4 cubes. Once they know that whatever they play here, they're not going to be able to arrow or manipulate our cards, because they're not going to be able to play on the last turn. They do skip, so they could do a She-Hulk and an arrow on the last turn potentially. But no such luck, my friend. We're going to lock them out of the Monster Metropolis lane. They are now locked out of all 3 locations. And we get the the uncomfy 4 cube wins, which we will absolutely take. We are going to take that one. That is where we're going to end the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. As always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.